Okay, let's move on to item 14. Welcome Bremerton Housing Authority Executive Director Jill Stanton for a presentation on item A14, Community Partner Update and Discussion on Shelter and Homelessness. Welcome, Jill.
Morning, Jill. So we're all the partners in there.
If we can.
Yeah, is it all right?
There's a chair.
You can, I mean, if you can move chairs, if there's enough chairs to move.
Which one?
Oh, thank you.
There.
Okay.
So next to.
And then Tim Shaney, he's our Director of Business Solutions, helping us out on this project. My computer died, but his computer's still working. So we're gonna go with his computer.
Partnership.
Okay, I just want to let you know, we didn't get these notes until just before we went into a meeting, so I don't think anybody from council has had a time to review them.
They were
So-
emailed? Is that what we're looking for?
Well, they're going to put it up on the screen too.
But
But yeah, we got an email after in-service started, I think. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
Could I share the screen? I don't know if I have permission.
Mm,
See if that's coming out.
there we go.
So maybe before we get started, I know there's new council members, so do you know who we are? Should we introduce ourselves? Is that helpful? Okay,
Sure.
okay. So welcome to City Council. Congratulations. I'm Jill Stanton, the Executive Director at the Bremerton Housing Authority.
And I'm Tim Shaney. I'm the Director of Business Solutions, but I report into Jill through the executive team at Bremerton Housing Authority.
Hello, everybody. Monica Bernard. I'm CEO of KIPSAP Mental Health Services.
I'm Tony Ives, the Executive Director at Kids of Community Resources, KCR.
And I'm Joseph Crane, the Executive Director at St. Vincent de Paul here in Bremerton.
So we're going to take questions as we go through because we want to make sure we're answering your questions, but also some of the council members have been with us for a long time on this project. So we don't want to be redundant on things that they already know, but certainly if you all have questions, we want to make sure that we answer those. So I just thought we'd start with just a brief history of why these four agencies got involved with this project. So it happened a few years ago. The city was facing growing encampments in the downtown area. There was a state law at the time that required that an overnight shelter option be available before encampments could be swept. So it kind of came to a moment where different agencies and the city and the county were trying to figure out what that option was going to be. And at the time, the Salvation Army was not open for overnight, except during the winter time. So we were all part of that initial group, just looking for a shelter solution. Eventually, a couple different shelter solutions emerged, and essentially the city council preferred a hybrid model, which was something that was presented by these four organizations. And so that's how we got here. And a resolution was passed for the cities, some of the city's funding of $1.3 million to essentially go to fund that hybrid model. There was a lot of unanswered questions at the time. We did have a site at the time that we were hoping to get, and that site fell through. So the work became getting a site. That was the biggest thing. But then also doing community education and outreach, getting the model together, finding the various service providers and other food providers, all of the things that we were going to need for the shelter. So that's what we've been working on for the past 2 years. Our organizations, I think Joe's organization currently does shelter provision. Bremerton Housing Authority does not do shelter provision, but Bremerton Housing Authority is very interested in this model because of the long-term housing, the subsidized housing that we do. And we know that there was this missing piece in the ecosystem, so to speak, of housing where somebody coming out of homelessness needs somewhere to enter. And they can't necessarily enter into the Bremerton Housing Authority because even though it's subsidized housing, you really need to be able to live independently. Now, that could be with services. Monica and I, our agencies, partner on different projects like this. But essentially, for the Bremerton Housing Authority, the goal, our mission is that other piece, long-term permanent housing. And we want to be involved in the ways that gets people to that. So, and then, I don't want to speak for my partners here, but they had, their own reasons that their agencies were very much in alignment with this hybrid model, which is why we're all working together. So let's go to the next slide. The Sheridan site is, the thing that is new since the last time we presented is that we own that site now. We have purchased it. And I wanted to just let the council know that while the hybrid shelter is an option and something we would like to do on the site, the long-term goal of the Bremerton Housing Authority, this is a very big property, is to take that site and use it for permanent housing. That is what we do. And so we also know there's a lack of that. So people coming out of the shelter will need permanent housing. The Housing Authority is a unique landlord in that we can help people who are ready for independent living access housing that they may not otherwise be able to access because maybe they don't have deposits or they don't have a rental history or they're working on their credit, things that would keep them from being successful in the private market. We can help them accomplish by coming to the Housing Authority. Of course, the long-term goal of that is that they would participate in our family self-sufficiency program if they can, and eventually go out into the private market. There will be people that never do. There will be people that will stay with Bremerton Housing Authority for their whole lives, and that's okay with us. So we provide that as well. And so that typically is somebody that is disabled or senior citizens, people that are not necessarily going into our family self-sufficiency program. So I just wanted you to understand with the background of why a housing authority would get involved in work like this.
Can I ask one question on this slide? So you say the long-term plan is to develop permanent housing as a phase 2 following the shelter. So how long do you anticipate that the shelter would be on this property?
So the shelter could be on the property at the same time as the other housing. Would it be, it's not a slide, but we have a picture that I could kind of show you this site, and it's draft form, but it's kind of what the long-term plan could look like. Would that be helpful?
Well, it was just the way that it was written. It sounded, at least the way I read it, was the shelter's going to be there for a while, and then we're going to develop housing on the piece of property that the shelter is on.
So the shelter would occupy a small portion of the property, and the housing that we would like to develop would go on the other parts of the property.
Okay, so the shelter would be there
as long as
until homelessness ends.
Well, as long as the city needs it or other plans come up. I mean, shelters are not typically forever places, and so but permanent housing is, right? And so that is our long-term goal. I want to be very clear that that is our long-term goal. We are embarking with our board on a 5-year strategic plan, and this site, along with some other things that we own and other projects, is a major part of what we're going to be strategizing how to use in the next year or so for the next 5 years. So again, I'm happy that we have this beautiful slide that kind of shows you the property if you want to see what the property looks like.
Are we talking about throwing it up on here?
Yeah, we can throw it up.
Jennifer's got her hand raised. So Jennifer, did you have a question at this point?
Oh, you know what? I do. It's not specific about this, but it is about property. And let me know if this is a good time to ask about long-term goals of property.
No, I thought we just did.
We just did.
Okay. So just publicly, what I'd like to ask, Ms. Stanton, is there any plan to do any kind of land swap with a piece of property out on Auto Center Way? I had somebody come and tell me that this was happening. And so I just want to publicly ask you if this is something that's happening with Bremerton Housing Authority.
I'm aware of what you are referring to. We were contacted by, I don't know if it was a developer. I didn't personally speak to them. They spoke to our development team. they talked about a property in that area, so I'm assuming it's the same one. And they talked to us about a land swap. We are not proposing to do that, but in addition, the Sheridan site came with some pretty strict
Yeah.
title things from the sellers. So as you might recall, the sellers gave us a significant discount because they too wanted to see this property used in the community to help the community. So even if we were to swap or sell, whoever owns this property would be subject to those restrictions. So this site,
That's fair.
yeah.
And so a developer would be under the restriction of having to develop it for affordable housing, which sounds like, from what I hear, is something that that developer is interested in doing if it pencils out. And so I'm just curious publicly if this is something that you're entertaining or if there's any plans in the work for the land swap, which it sounds like there's been conversations and there's been meetings. And so publicly, I just wanted to ask you this.
Yeah, there's been one meeting with one of our
Okay.
development staff, and no, this is not something that the housing authority is entertaining.
Oh, okay. I was just hoping that it would be because I know that the zoning is better out towards Auto Center Way and we could expedite it faster potentially in a location like that rather than the Sheridan site. But if you're saying publicly that that's not something you're entertaining, then I'll take you at your word for it. Thank you. That's all.
So if you bring up that other
Sure.
slide. So this is kind of an outline. Again, this is just a draft to show you potentially what it could look like. And you can see that where Sheridan comes down and Wheaton comes. So the shelter is proposed. We're kind of right there on that corner where Tim is putting the arrow. And then the housing would be really on the kind of the back end where above that hill where that slope is, there's already some residential places up there. And so those are the areas that we're looking at. We also know that the city has some plans to put a road through this site, and not exactly sure where that's going to go or how it would work, but we would like to essentially work with the city using that road as a natural division, so to speak, of where the shelter might go for now and housing would go later.
So I have a question. So this is where you envision the pallet shelters. What is this?
That's just a potential other site where we could have multifamily housing.
Okay, so potentially multifamily and over here.
Potentially
Potentially.
multifamily, or, we also are looking at senior housing. This would be something that the board will take up as part of our strategic planning, understanding what the needs are of the community that we're serving and deciding what type of housing we want to put there, which will determine what kind of grant funding we go after. So that's what I really wanted to begin with, is so that you could see the site, see what our thinking is on the site. And then we have these discussion topics that are up here. We have slides for these topics. We could present as we did the last time, or if there are specific topics here that you would like to talk about, we can jump to those topics. And if there's something that's not up here, this would be a great time to bring that up as well. That's the history.
I know you're looking at me and I appreciate that. I actually was able to meet with all four of you on my own when I was actually going through the election process, because I thought it was important to kind of get the background that you guys have known for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to get in here on day one and be like, wait, what? Yeah. So thank you so much for the time that you guys gave me, and the resources and PowerPoints and all of that. I feel like I'm at least confident to sit in this chair today with this.
Well, I do want to make something clear. You probably knew before I knew any of that, because there's never been until late September a discussion with all of council about this. So we didn't all know what the plan was or even where the plan was.
I didn't know where. I will say the where was never, it was the overarching, what the vision was, what we're looking at. Joe did a great presentation for me of continuum of care of like what they're looking for, because there's today's needs, they're anticipating tomorrow's needs and these things. So that was the multi-phased look at things of, the shelters being phase one in that, but almost looking at that timeline of the continuum of care. It's also kind of step one too.
Okay. Denise
I'm sorry.
or Rick, you want to go? Go ahead.
Well, you said topics there, so the jump to the coding and design challenges. Having been on the planning commission and designated that property the way it is today, so so are you prepared to discuss that?
Yeah, I am prepared to discuss that. So, can you go to the very next slide, first
Sure,
of all? Okay, so on this slide, I'm not going to read through this obviously, but a lot, as I'm sure everybody at the table knows, a lot goes into the due diligence when you both before and after you buy a property and figuring out what you can use the property for, where the utilities are and all that. That's an extensive piece of work that we have done a lot. So we've done most of the initial testing, running the title reports, just various analysis, initial architectural site plans, things like that. All the due diligence that a developer would do. Most of it is either been done or is underway before you get to the point of getting a permit or applying for a permit or figuring out what kind of zoning or design change codes you might need or be asking for. So all that preliminary work is either underway or completed. So why don't we jump to the coding and design challenges? And
We don't have this, right?
you should have it in your packets.
It wasn't in the packet.
No.
It got emailed while we were in our
I've been
training.
looking for it.
I was gonna say, I don't think I was on that email.
We just got it.
Was it 5/7?
Okay,
5/17, we got it.
Gotcha.
There's, if you go to the bottom, there's a link. It's just a very large document that we kind of download. But you should-
The subject line is
Right.
community development.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we tried to get this out yesterday. I do believe Katie got it out by 10 a.m. this morning, but we're still working on it. So I just want to say, first of all, I'm not an architect and I'm not an expert at permitting, zoning, and all those things. So I'm not going to maybe use all the right language or say all the right things. But what I want to say is we know that there's some things that would, in the zoning, that would perhaps have to change in order for us to do this plan. We also know that there's some things in the design due to some of the city ordinances that we may have to ask for deviation from for this to happen. So that's not uncommon in comparison to the previous site that we were looking at. It may be different, maybe more at this site, but it's not something that made us not purchase this site because we understand there's a public process that the council and the city would have to go through. We fully believe in those processes, and we believe we could still get there on this site. So those are the types of challenges that we are going to have before we can actually start building the hybrid shelter. So is there any specific questions you had on?
No,
Okay.
I mean, we have some
Okay.
feedback here and
Yeah.
process is not started yet with regard to.
Yeah, I know.
deviations of what.
Yes, no, we
Okay.
have not started. We needed to buy the property first. Yeah.
Understand.
So Denise first and then Jennifer.
I just, before we get any further, I really appreciate the kind of the history. We have a different perception of the history. And my constituents had to read about the Sheridan site in the Kitsap Sun. I know that's water under the bridge, but that can be a fatal error. And there's been no public process about this. So that concerns me greatly. I'm always one that says trust the process until I don't. And so I have to say that stopped me. And I think I don't know what we're being asked for. I truly don't. Is that gonna, I saw the ask. We need this council, this city has been hearing Joe Crane and Tony Ives and all these presentations on the model. I was sold on the model a long time ago, okay? And now our community's sold on the model. What if it's not possible? That's that's where I come to, is this is great. Have we been making promises to our community that we can't keep? That's a problem for me. I don't want to raise expectations and hopes and faith and all of that and have to be the one that says, I can't afford it, you know? So let's get to the ask. I think the context we've gone over enough, because we have different contexts depending on whose perspective it was. So I need to know what you're asking for. Besides, I can't simply say I support this. I can't do that anymore. I've got to be able to say or ask questions about specifics. Okay. And I have like timeline, you're asking for a lot of permit work, a lot of zoning, I mean, there are a lot of processes that have to take. And we've got people out here that needed shelter 2 years ago. I'm incredibly frustrated over that 2 years. And so I need to know. I've been listening for 2 years on this model, and frustration after frustration, especially with my constituents. And I want to know what we can get to the ask, so this council knows what we're being asked for. Besides, I support.
So when we brought this model years ago to the city council, I mean, everybody left that meeting with every intention. Yeah. I think we disclosed at that time that there was not a site identified. We had some prospects. The primary prospect fell through. This site checked a lot of boxes. It was not necessarily part of a public discussion because it was a private transaction that took us almost a year to work through with the seller. And I can appreciate what you're saying. I do.
City council on our team.
And we did have a representative from city council on the team on virtually every meeting throughout this process. How that translated and got communicated back to this council, obviously there was, that some of this did not happen, but we did keep the site confidential for a reason, because it was part of a negotiation that took a significant amount of time with the seller, much longer than we thought. But we looked at a number of other sites across this community, and we're not able to identify any other site that was going to work for these purposes. So
I need to correct something.
The meeting, the presentations, there were people in our community working with the homeless that were told about the site, but my constituents were not. So we had service providers, informal service providers, asking me about it, telling me how much they loved it. They thought it was perfect. My constituents weren't made aware of that. There's been a lack of public process. And that's a done deal. It's done, but there was a lack of public process. And that makes me very concerned, obviously. But again, I want to get to the ask.
Okay, well, hold on a second.
But I think if I had respond to that, because that's a very important point. We didn't even inform our boards, fully. until like the day before the Kitsap Sun article. They were aware of these discussions. They knew we were working on this, but we didn't even bring our boards together until, and that wasn't even our board. It was KCR's and BHA. So I can appreciate that, but I don't know how it got out because we kept the news, we kept the site location.
Well, I want to make it real clear, though. You had one council member who was sworn to secrecy. So it's not like council knew about it. We didn't know where it was going to be. We didn't know the design. So to say council was involved, there was one person. So I want to
That's fair.
make sure everybody realizes that.
The first time we did identify a site, then it ended up in the paper before we actually started negotiation on the deal, and
True.
everything fell apart. And so this time we said when we did find one, we would keep it as quiet because we didn't want it to be disclosed before it was closed.
I, as a representative of that district, how can you go through with the purchase of a property for a specific purpose without doing a community assessment? That puts you in a bind. It certainly puts us in a bind. So I'll leave that. I think my feelings are adequately.
Okay, Jennifer's had her hand up for a while. Jennifer?
Yeah. Hey, I was ready. I was ready to speak this time, but hi friends. Thank you for coming back and braving all of our questions. I know it's not easy to come when you don't have a deliverable specific to what we're hoping that you would have. And so I want to honor the work that you've done in all of this. I want to honor the intention that you had in seeing this goal forward, because it's not as if you have just pushed it onto the back burner and just forgotten about it. You have other projects you've been working on in tangent with, this project. And so it sounds like, though, that this parcel has multiple uses, which is exciting. And this is a parcel that is zoned for multifamily housing, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So that's part of your goal for the future. The plans for the future are to have multifamily affordable housing through BHA on this site. Am I incorrect in analyzing that?
I didn't get that.
That's our hope.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I see it as a great spot for that. I think that'd be the perfect. It's, how we have, and I used to live right down the road from there. I used to live in District 2, off of Chestnut Street. So, and I know the neighbors there, and I do understand where Councilor Fry is coming from, because that neighborhood I believe that a shelter can exist in almost any location, right? So I'm not trying to throw shade on that at all. What I know is that there is a process for zoning changes that is a little bit laborious. And so what is our timeline looking like again? Can I have a reminder? What I would have really liked last time it came is to hear more from our service providers instead of from the architect, whoever that was. I forgot her name. But what is again the timeline for zoning approval for the shelter?
That's really a question for the city. We can apply for it, but I don't have any control over the timing that would take. But I know there's a public process. So.
We have Garrett here. We have Garrett
Perfect.
here.
I know that there's no plan. Garrett, hi.
Yeah, Garrett here. I don't know. Garrett, are you here to provide
components to the project? So it depends on what you're going to apply for first.
There's no application in there.
Okay, wait. Garrett is speaking. Can you come closer to the mic so Jennifer can hear you?
Thank you. I can hear.
There's a lot of different components to the project, so it depends on what they apply for first. If it's the shelter, they can apply for that immediately. If it's the pallet village, then that requires a zoning code amendment. If they need departures from the code, that'll require design review board. The pallet shelter itself is a conditional use permit, so it really is dependent on the specific proposal. The breadth of this is quite large, so it depends on how the applicant wants to proceed. We can advise them as they see fit.
Are we talking about months, a year? What are we
Oh,
talking about?
certainly.
Hold on, I still have the floor.
I'm sorry, Jennifer.
It's okay. I love you.
And once again, the public process, needs to take its course. So, that can be unpredictable at times as far as exchange of information, getting, working
Right.
back with the applicant. So it's really, it's a months to potentially longer process dependent upon
Right.
time of application. There's been, the intent to apply for some time now. We have yet to see an application. So
Yeah,
we
sure.
submit the report, which explains, the process ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Yep.
And then Garrett, don't go away yet. I have another kind of a tough question to ask that goes along with that. But just to, my recollection is that it's like a minimum of 9 months to pass a zoning code change for the pallet shelter. Is that, am I wrong? And even if they got an application in today for the pallet shelter, it'd be like just the zoning process through planning commission, et cetera, is 9 months. And maybe, I mean, we do have a former planning commission representative on our council now. Somebody,
Yeah.
it just is 9 months just kind of like a really liberal, or is that a kind of a spot on?
I think the
Time
last
frame.
time we did this, that was like, I would say lightning quick speed at maybe a 4 month period. Sounds like it was
Sure.
about right. And it's
Okay.
probably the fastest we've done it. So
Ooh.
that portion of it, I mean, yeah. But once again, public process, public input guides the length of these processes. So I hate harping on that, but
And that's okay. The last question I want to ask is related to this. And so I hope, Council President, you'll find this germane. What I want to find out is in relation to where this process is at, this shelter process, how far along in the process did we get for the Oyster Bay site? And is that kind of still an option for us if we wanted to pursue that? Like as far as time frame, is this germane? Is that okay to ask that, Council President?
Yeah, you can ask.
Okay. How is the Oyster Bay site looking? The one that we previously rejected.
The Oyster Bay site is available for 5 to 10 to 20 years, at which time it will be turned over to Public Works. This is a site that is controlled by the community partners.
So I think the question is
Is it still an option?
is it still an option? And if it is an option, how long would it take? How long would it take to get people actually sleeping there?
Mhm.
And I guess that's a question for the mayor.
Yeah, so, speaking of public process,
Yeah.
public came out and voiced their, opinions on the Oyster Bay project, and the council went a different path. So you'd have to probably start going out there and asking and explaining why you might want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
So public process, this is what Garrett was talking about,
Mhm.
can't say it enough, that determines speed. So,
Okay.
yeah, and the people out there, they felt heard. You made your decision. Here we are.
So here we are. Is the public process portion, you know what? I think that this is probably a conversation for another study session. I want to stay germane to the topic. I don't want to keep harping on it, but my curiosity is really, council, we need a shelter to go up. We already have had funding that's been slashed, and maybe it's coming back. We don't know, for the Salvation Army. We need something kind of shovel ready for our people. And Ms. Stanton and community partners, are you, and publicly, I'm going to ask you, if there was a plan that we could expedite quicker than your plan for a shelter, would you release the funding from ARPA for a new plan, or will you hang on to it and potentially risk losing it?
I think from the Bremerton Housing Authority's point of view, we're providing an option. You want a different option? That's up to you. Like,
Thank you.
our boards of all of our organizations, the four of us, we have done everything that we possibly can, and we have an option.
You work so hard. You work so hard.
If you want to go down another path, you should do that. This is, and while we believe this is the best, it's okay, yes. So yes, if you want your money back, we will happily release your money back to you to do that.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
we're okay with that.
thank
Like,
you.
we're
And
not here to fight with our city. Like, that's not what we do. I also
I
just
know.
want to, like, uh, speak to what Garrett was saying, as far as there might be some permitting, some design deviations. We can do this in phases as well. So we can determine what's the fastest thing that we can do and do it in phases. We're committed to working as quickly as we can. We know the Salvation Army is closing. They're our close friends. We work with them. And we
Yeah.
know the people that we're trying to serve. So, we're willing to do this in phases. But the most important thing to my board, and I'll speak for my board, is that we do this model because it's in alignment with the permanent housing piece, which we've already put in place. We already work with all of our shelters to give them preferences for vouchers. We've housed 80 people through that program in 8 months. We know that that works. That brings in all the federal resources that Housing Authority has access to. So that is our mission, that's our mindset and our goal. So
Excellent. And the last question I'll ask is if, oh, I'm so sorry. And the last question I'll ask, and then I'll turn it back to Council President for whoever's next, is if council does choose to go with another plan that is not your plan, will you assist in, how long will it take the board to make a decision to be a partner with any new plan that we might approve?
I'm not going to speak to my board. My board will be taking this up, but I will speak to what my recommendation to the board would be. This has taken a significant amount of my time and my staff's time, for which BHA has been the sole funder of that. And we feel we have met and exceeded the obligation that we have made to the city. We will provide you this option. We're happy to continue on this option, but I would not be recommending to my board that we continue as a partner in another option, because again, this
Loud
is
and clear. Okay. So you're not willing to partner with any other organization to assist with the funding? Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate the very candid answer.
My recommendation, and Monica.
Yeah, I was going to say there are other agencies. I mean, that's unique to your mission, but aligning with whatever option is selected, Kitsap Mental Health Services will take our services and move to whatever location is run. I mean, that's part of it. It's intrinsic to our mission. So to answer your question, Jennifer, I wouldn't say that we're just supporting this project, but we think we could get a shelter, standalone shelter, if we did this in phases, rather quickly. That doesn't require all the other deviations and things like that the pallet part would do. But I think it's critical to us that there be an understanding of the broader vision for this, that we're not just interested in doing a standalone congregate shelter. Our goal is to create some kind of a pathway and not just put people in a single congregate shelter. So, we'll do whatever, even if it's a standalone congregate shelter. What we believe also very strongly in the need for pathways to permanent housing. That's where
it's such and it's an innovative, it's a creative, and I love this idea. And people loved it 2 years ago. I think that I still am curious, as Councilor Fry is, as to what the ask is. We're dipping into our reserves. We have no more money to offer. I'm just telling you that, just candidly. We cannot continue to go into debt as a city for operations.
Jennifer,
do you have
an additional question, or is it just a statement?
I'm off my soapbox and I'll go back onto mute. I'm also getting some noise garbling again, so I might have to sign off and sign back in.
Okay.
Thank you.
I guess the question on the table, there was already a question that hasn't been answered, is what is the ask? Because the last time when your architect was presenting, she presented that she wanted us to deviate from code. She wanted us to pay for the infrastructure that's required and that you wanted $1 million a year for operations. So I just want to clarify today, what is the ask?
Okay, first and foremost, you can speak to some of the specifics on because Jill is closer to the architect. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we're on the same page with the city of Bremerton and the city council. That's what we meant by saying that we're looking for an endorsement. That's just a word. What we really want is to know that we're on the same page, because we're not trying to do our own thing here. We're trying to do something for the benefit of the city and all of its residents. So that is the first and primary ask. We understand that the city is budget constrained. We do. We heard that loud and clear at that last meeting. I understand that there's not necessarily specific line item budget to support it in the current year city budget. But what we're asking for is a commitment to long-term supporting this in your city budget, contributing to the operating funds of this project, which we estimate will be in the range of $3 million a year. That's not our ask of the city. We will be pursuing all kinds of funding for this, and we're all well-established agencies. So we are confident that if this is able to come online before some of that grant money is available, that we'll be able to stand up that shelter and be able to address the gap between now and the beginning of the year when a lot of these other funding sources come available. So that is our secondary ask. We're not asking for, while it may have come across that way, and just to clarify, we're not asking you to bypass any process that you have. You have a public process. We do understand that. But there's a difference between, bypassing processes and being on the same page and working in collaboration towards a common vision. And that doesn't mean that you don't follow through on your normal process if there's certain improvements that need to be made. But we're just asking that to the extent that there's anything that the city can do that makes this process move quicker, that is because it's in the interest of the people that we're serving. So that if there's an ask, if you want me to say a dollar amount, I would turn back to you and say, as a city, what are you able to invest in this project? We will find the funds. Yes. We have other funding sources. So that, I don't know if that addresses.
So I want to, not really, but if you go back to that overall plan, so my background is in public works inspection. I'm looking at all those developments costs, and it's somewhere between $5 and $10 million. And that's not, and this is the gateway to our, yeah, it is. I mean, there's a lot of sidewalk, there's all kinds of street lighting. There's a lot of work there, utility extensions. So are you asking us to not give you the same requirements that we would give to a developer? And then there were definitely some aspects of the pallet shelters that don't meet current building codes at all.
For the city of Bremerton, not for the state of Washington.
We're in the city of Bremerton.
We're in the city. So yeah, it's
not as difficult to adopt the Washington state approved definition for tiny homes that was adopted by the Senate bill in 2019. State of Bremerton could adopt that easily, like many cities have.
Is that part of the ask?
Is that part of the ask? And I don't know what the difference is. All I know is I read that 5-page document of all the things in your pre-submittal.
Yeah,
so
in partnership with us, that would potentially be working through that. As we roll this out in phases, we've identified that the congregate shelter is the primary thing that we need to get rolled out initially. And then that we would work through the zoning changes requirement that would change the definition, because that's all that's on the table for the tiny homes, is remove them from the definitions under encampments. So the state of Washington already did that pre-COVID. So I think that would be an easier ask than what we actually navigated in lightning speed a year or two ago, because the state of Washington's already done it. But that could be done in partnership with us over time.
Well, our building official isn't here, so I can't comment if that's the only thing that needs to be done.
So I can comment that on the capital cost, we do have most of the money, if not all of the money, depending on what is needed. I mean, we've acquired the land with state money and the seller donation. We have the money from the SIA funding with the estimates for the pallet or tiny home village. We have that money already committed. We have the money that you've committed. We have the dollars that the county has committed. So we already have about, about $6.7 million
Total for everything.
total to develop the shelter. Yes.
And
We also,
With the improvements.
we don't know what those, we
Okay.
don't know, like and we have to work through that, but we have a lot already and we have the ability to go get more, to ask for more.
That's
to
capital.
do things. But so that's what we have.
It's not operating.
in the operating, we've already been working towards that. We already have commitments for example, from the Department of Health to fund 10 respite beds for 3 years. And we're developing a plan, and it's unique to Kitsap County. We're one of the 2 counties that were chosen for that, and it's going to roll out after 3 years. So we're optimistic that they're going to be a partner, but that's just one example. We've already been working towards taking a load off the city of Bermuda, frankly, and trying to do this collaboratively like we always do.
And the county
Can
has
I
their bed
please?
rate. So the county's bed rate, that goes into operations. That could be approximately $600 to $1 million. And we don't have to apply for that. That's set aside for this shelter. Your annual SIA funding that we would have to apply for annually. The mental health county funding, 0.1% funding, that's funding we would go after. And there's other sources too. Commerce, there's just, we go after money a lot. So there is other things we would go after. But to Monica's point, city does.
As soon as she's done. Oh, I'm sorry. Anna had asked me a while
Okay.
ago. Go ahead, Anna.
You were in the middle of speaking? Okay. Hi. Inhala, exhala. I think that this is at a fever pitch because all of us are equally extremely frustrated at the idea that human beings are out getting cold and wet and sick, and it is driving everybody nuts. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the presentation that council approved in January 2024, where what was spoken was that there'd be a congregate shelter of 40 to 50 beds, which is like half the size of the current congregate shelter you're proposing.
We were proposing something at the last meeting, but we heard what you said. We can start with much smaller.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to say is, and I'm so sorry about our new equipment and us only having had it for, 6 hours and 15 minutes now. But one of the things that you were all very careful about was making sure that you would minimize any negative impact on neighborhoods, which goes to Denise's point about community outreach. And in fact, in part of that presentation, you made the point, and I believe this was in response to Jennifer Chamberlain's point, that a lot of people who live in a shelter have a restraining order on somebody else who's in that community, and that therefore, like, several small areas might work well. And that was also in the presentation that we approved in January 24. And thank you for incorporating our comments. That doesn't always happen. So I don't think anybody in this council is in a position to give an answer on your ask today, right? But I do think I'm really glad you came to talk to us, and I really do like that. it really was true. Jeff Coughlin was sworn to secrecy, and he would sit right there week after week after week or month after month and just say, I can't say anything about the site. They're developing a lot of services. I can't say anything about them. Um, so to just, and I think most of us really appreciate that you came and were like, okay, well, we realized that was like a flaming curveball out of the sky. And I believe that we can work these things out. Perhaps not quite so late at night next time.
It's only 7.
I know, but it's been since one.
It's been since one, so I'm really impressed at my ability to remain vertical, right? That's the way it goes. Do you have a plan for any kind of shelter that you can provide during it sounds like 8 to 10 months minimum, during which the permitting and the developing and the application for zoning changes and community outreach, that's at least 8 to 10 months. Am I correct on that, Garrett? More or less?
Honestly, I don't think that, I think we get an application in, we see what they're asking for, and then we can assess at that time.
Fair
It's
enough.
hard to judge an application before we see it.
Fair enough. It was fun to have exact figures in my mouth for a moment there, but I'm going to that. So do you have any plan where that you can provide even like sanctioned campsites or something for people? The county's funding will expire in June 2026. Does anybody have a plan for what's going to happen in May 2026?
Oh, Carl has his hand up.
Oh, go, Carl.
We have our bed rate that we will continue to fund Salvation Army for their overnight shelter. So there will be a place for people to sleep overnight until the shelter is open.
So on beyond June 2026?
Yeah, well, as far as we know, we've talked with Captain Dana, they're gonna stay open as long as needed until the shelter's open. But not the 24/7 model that you see now. So the difference is now they actually do bring people in at 7 o'clock at night. They lay the mats out beforehand, and then people wake up in the morning and they go out. It's not a continuous stay model. So we will continue to fund so there's a place for people to sleep overnight.
Okay. Does anybody have a plan?
Funding then transfer over to this project.
Yeah, we have a set aside for the Birmingham project.
It's a pass through from
That's
Commerce,
bed
right?
night.
Yeah.
Well, they give us the money and we have our committee that's.
That's
Simple layman's terms. It's like
Yeah,
from Commerce to
yeah.
Kitsap Housing to wherever, Tinker to Evers to Chance. Okay. So yeah, Kylie, please go ahead.
One clarification, can we just get the letter from the commissioners? It seems to say that funding is gonna be reassessed in June. Are you saying that it has?
That's when we have, our shelter funding or one-year contract. So the end of that is June 31st, and then we would have our funding source restored for all the shelter. So each shelter gets, an amount of money at a set bed rate. So what that means is that at the end of June, the current year for contracts for shelters, we issue new contracts July 1 through the next year. So we're on the biennium cycle for the state. So each year we have to renew the shelter contract.
So the June 30th deadline that's in the letter.
We refer to our deadline, but that's the end of the state fiscal year, and then we'll have a new contract available with fresh money going forward.
Okay. Whether council wants to continue with these partners or not is not a discussion that we're going to have right now. So just, do you have any plan for like a day center as the revitalization center that was going to be, but like practically adjacent?
No.
That like
That
none
was
of
not
you,
part of the scope.
none of you would cover that. Yeah. Okay, because the revitalization center is.
inoperable.
It needs revitalization.
Yeah, I got an email from Diana and it's not something that we can count on
No,
in the foreseeable future.
never.
Well,
You're talking about
Drayton's,
Drayton's, the site.
Drayton and
Oh,
Diana's
okay,
place,
yeah.
the revitalization center.
Honestly,
Yeah,
it's not really
yeah.
germane to the topic. I'm sorry. I hope that's okay to say.
What?
Yeah, that,
Yeah, not germane.
Yeah.
not germane, and let's let some other, after
Yeah.
Anna finishes, and
I am
go
about
on.
to. Okay.
Okay.
So, thank you, and I hope you get home safely.
Okay, Mike, Denise, let's let everybody else have a say first.
Sure. You heard me earlier, any of you, congratulating Nicotai for the pivot that he made. When circumstances change, we pivot. And a little over a year ago, the world changed. And we started seeing it really quick. And we're seeing fewer and fewer federal dollars being allocated. I'm very worried about it. I'm sure you all are. I know you all. And I really regret having to be here in this chair tonight and not be commiserating with you as much as I would like to, but it's there. Okay.
We know.
Okay. I see reports of shelters closing every day now because of the lack of operational. I know you can build it. I know there's capital funds that seem to be almost too easy to get sometimes, but operational is it. It's like nobody wants to fund operating except for bed nights or this, and it's never enough. And my constituents are very concerned about the building of a facility without sustainable operations over the course of its run, because then we've built a facility and we're going to have a massive amount of problems that we're going to need. Chief, I know Chief McGanny is here. Pendleton Place. I mean, do you have an example? What can we expect? What's call volume? That's the other thing that people don't realize is that our city supports so many efforts out there through our police and fire, and assumptions are made that the police are going to provide this or the fire is going to. We have to allocate that. We have to, if it's going to take 10% of the. And by the way, most departments report about a 30% drain on their. They focus 30% of their budget on vandalism, trying to deal with what we're dealing with as a city. And so unless there's sustainable operations, and I'm talking 3 to 5 years, it's not feasible. It's not from my perspective. And you can tell me all you want to about how you're going to raise this money. Tony Ives raises money like nobody else I've ever known. But operations is another thing. That's a different kind of money. And I'm very worried about that. And I also want to remind council that I'm representing a district that has a moon-sized crater in it right now because we don't have a Harrison Hospital anymore. You drive up Cherry Avenue, you're going to see it. You're going to see a whole bunch of vacant lots that used to be parking lots that CHI also owns. And they're trying to sell that. That's 2 blocks away from the Sheridan site. I need to bring that up. I'm not saying anything really about this proposal, but you got to realize that's in a redevelopment zone. It's zoned for redevelopment. And that means that we're trying to attract builders. We're trying to attract people to invest. And if you have to build something that big, that's a big crater. It's going to take a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of investors that have to be attracted. What say you about this? Are we going to be selling that as part of the package of Harrison Heights? because this is a part of Harrison Heights, and we're not respecting that. And I have to speak out. I know I'm going to get personally attacked by people after this. I don't care anymore. I really don't care. I'm doing the work for the city of Bremerton and for my constituents. And it feels way too shaky at this point for a lot of different reasons. And I'm glad we're not voting tonight. I'm glad we're not voting.
Could I offer any comments to you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So operating costs, I mean, you and I've known you for a long time, and I deeply respect your history and the work and your commitment. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
With respect to, I'll just use, you brought up Pendleton Place, and I'll bring that as an example. That was a $21.8 million investment. It was big, right? Capital dollars. It took us several years to get it. Operating costs, not just on the staff, is somewhere in the $2 to $2.5 million range. We go after that $2.5 million every single year. But that's just how it's done, though. You know, so we will be going after the sea of funds every year. We will be going after the 1/10 of 1%. This community, just in 1/10 of 1% alone, just for the mental health and substance use, is somewhere in the $4 to $6 million range. It's probably more than that. I'm probably understating it. Then there's the CF funding, which offers the same amount. So the funding is in our community, in the county. It's at the end of the day, we have to competitively go after that. But this is a priority for this community. This is a priority for this county, and we're all very experienced fund developers. So I feel really confident. I would not be venturing into this as a leader of a large agency unless I felt confident in that. And then when we speak to kind of the impact on city infrastructure, I don't have that data in front of me, but we have looked at the individuals that have come. There's been a lot of calls, of course, to 911, but the vast majority of those are health-related calls. We're dealing with people with chronic health conditions. We cannot tell them any more than we could tell anybody in private housing that they can't dial 911. So there will be that impact, but we have looked at arrest history and engagement with law enforcement, unbelievable reductions. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I could be happy to get those to you. And as to the zoning in that area, that is purely a city decision. That is your decision as to how it is zoned. We are trying to work within the way it is zoned from at least from the shelter perspective, and make reasonable variances for the pallet shelter. So, I mean, I think our team is trying to work with you, but we do not want to push this on the city. And I feel that's what we're getting. And because each one of our agencies is here because we care deeply about those folks that are on the street. It's hard for me to even talk about the perspective. So I know we're on the same page here, but we need to get on the same page with respect to the vision, and we can't keep pushing this out. We all get that the time is of the essence. So that's why we want to know. There's a lot of work that will go into putting an application for zoning in this community. If you don't want it there, then you need to tell us, and we'll stop. We'll stop because we have put a tremendous amount of time, and to me, it's not wasted. At the end of the day, BHA is going to use that property and they're going to build some affordable housing, and great. But then we miss this unique opportunity where we have a plan that's ready to go, budget's ready to go, partners signed up, MOUs in place. Here, take it. We want to do this with you guys. But if it's not the right answer, we need you just to tell that to us. I'm just being honest.
I'd like to hear from some other counselors. Yeah.
So Monica, thank you for what you just said, because you stole a lot of my.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm glad it came out. But people in crisis are going to be people in crisis, no matter the setting that they're in. So whether they're in an encampment or in a single family house, poor altogether. And I would actually think that responders going to a place that has support people like a Pendleton Place or a congregate shelter has got somebody who's going to meet them, is going to take them right to where it's going, and they're not going. So I like to think that it just redistributes, and I actually I would believe that there probably is actually a reduction. Yes, if we look at a heat map for Pendleton Place, it used to be blue and now it's red because nobody used to live there, right? So like we maybe have concentrated to a bit of a hotspot. I still believe in this vision, okay? And I would like to see us spend, I guess, like how could we make this work? There's a lot of things that I've heard through the night that I feel like we could either do or find a way to reach a compromise. Like, just the one we were talking about, sidewalks, right? And it's an expensive thing. But we also know that we've got a crack team that can put in sidewalks and curb cuts.
They can only do so much
I understand.
by state law.
I understand. But we control a lot of this, and we can either apply more red tape to something, or we could find ways to remove it. So we may not have all the money we need today, but there's things that we can do that could support, save money for whatever project. But I still think this sounds like a good, and I'm actually was more interested to hear about how the property would be developed with different things, how it's sort of concentrated, and then how maybe someday it could be redeveloped. So we have to do something, and we can't just every 2 years kick the plan to the curb. We have to figure this out. We have to keep moving forward.
Can we hear from Danny and
Sure.
Elton as long as they're here?
Christy and Rick too, but yeah, Chief McGanny, do you want to comment
Chief
at all?
McGanny and Captain Elton, just from a law enforcement and fire perspective, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I mean, Pendleton Place, that's before I went to all the meetings, it was supposed to be wrapped around service. We responded 85 times last year. I mean, we're a small fire department running a lot of calls. We're running almost 11,000 calls a year. And when we have the areas that we have, it taxes the fire and police department. So, I don't think, I think it's great that you guys get together. You guys don't take emergency service into consideration and what the effect it has, right? When we build big buildings, 4, 5, 6-story buildings, and put a lot of people in them, those take our resources. We have just gotten to the point where our staffing probably is where we should have been back in 2008. Well, we're in 2026. And we're running as many calls as Central Kids out. Their population is almost double ours. And their resources are double ours. So I don't think you don't take it into consideration. There's no funding. If you want to put the Sheridan property, what that is going to do to fire and police, and is there going to be funding for the city if everybody's coming together to staff the unit, to staff the police officer? That's not in the fund. So I would just ask, you guys want to put these together, that you take emergency services into consideration when we start bringing a bunch of people into Burma. I mean, down here, this area downtown, it's a drain. We ran 277 overdoses last year. That's a drain on our people. It's not the same as it used to be. People are not grateful to emergency service. People are not grateful to police officers. And our people get treated horrible. So I think you guys really would be appreciated to take that into consideration when you're putting these plans together. We have never been brought to the table on any of this.
I'd like to hear from the police department, Joe, before I go to you.
So Chief McGanny covered some things that are overlapping for sure. And what I'd like to say is I love the Salvation Army and work with Captain Dana, and I can appreciate that resource. We need it. But there is no doubt if you were to look at a heat map in the city of Bremerton, that address and that area down there, including MSA, it is a red block, and it gets most of the police resources for the city. It gets more resources than our bars. So, no matter where it is, whether it's there or if it's Sheridan, if it's in the city of Bremerton, it's going to be a draw in law enforcement, also for staff. We're happy to get on board and start talking to people about this thing. We've been reluctant to do so, and maybe reluctant, maybe a bad word, so sorry if I chose it wrongly. But site control, I think you may have site control on a property, but you don't have a viable property from what I'm hearing today. Things have to happen, come to full fruition, and that's outside of the police department. So once all those things are done, yeah, we're happy to sit down and spend the time on it. Otherwise, we have to allocate our time for it. So yeah, a lot of what you said,
So Joe, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just appreciative of their comments because I did EMS for the military for a long time, 25 years in healthcare before I came into this. And that's why I reached out to you about a year ago to start these conversations to integrate EMS as part of our systems engineering. Because I know that this is an integrated process. That's why I think we were selected for this model, because of the integrated services and the systems engineering model, where we're bringing the community together. You know, in those 25 years in healthcare and seminars and conventions, there's always social determinants of health, social determinants of health. How can we get ahead of this? Because our EMS, our ERs, if you ever go into an ER for a cold and you wait in there for like 6 hours and you're like, why is this waiting so long? It's because they're being misallocated for resources because of these high utilizers. So that's that integration piece that we want to start early conversations with, to build this out with the city, to say, where are the pathways, where are the locations, how would we pick up, how would we make calls, what's the points of escalation for services, are there escalation in between, working with security before we call BPD, for example, working with St. Michael Medical Center. I've asked for data to get a baseline for this, so we can also look at data-driven outcomes. So we can look at and monitor 6 months after this is built, a year after this is built. Are we reducing that strain on our local medical system and our local EMS? So I'm glad you mentioned that tonight, because I've been standing by, looking forward to have this conversation with both of you, because this has to be an integrated approach for this, because we understand that. And that's one of the things I've been excited about, is that this has an opportunity to change the game for Bremerton. The economy, our property values going up across this entire region. When we address this crisis, and there's failures all across this nation. I can't endorse a standalone, isolated, check-in-the-box shelter. Why would we throw money at something we've seen fail all across this nation? And now they're being investigated for how much they're dumping money into that. That's a fail from the beginning. So it took us a while to secure the site. In November, we came in and we said, hey, we got it. It looks like we're going to close on this soon. Can we start? And we had the same frustrations you had. It's taken for way too long. But we have secured a site now. We were hoping for, confetti and yes, team, go. Now what do we need to do? And I think that's our takeaway ask tonight is, what's the next step?
All right, in my opinion, the next step is real community outreach. That hasn't been done. It's been done
on systems engineering, please.
We've done. Wait, can I finish, please?
You haven't been talking to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking. I've gotten reports from different people who have attended meetings up at the Village Event Center. I don't think there's been any District 2 meeting, especially since the location was listed. And in the city of Bremerton's defense, we are the only no barrier shelter. The county was telling us yesterday how, oh, well, it's real close, what we've got over in Port Orchard. Not even close. When they do background checks for folks who go to their shelter. They look at assaults, felonies of any kind, sex offenses, rapes, violent offenses, arson, history of violence of any kind, and also medical and behavior care needs that are above the shelter's ability to meet. So this is, I know Bremerton is the place where people have come because we have some services, but there's over 250,000 people in Kitsap, and there's 45,000 in Bremerton. So I don't understand why Bremerton is being asked by anybody, and I don't mean just you, I mean anybody, to shoulder not only the burden of coming up with money. We are the most taxed area in the whole county, and yet we don't get a lot back for it. I mean, if you saw a map of all the places that pay no property tax, you can start right across the street. We have nonprofits galore, which I know y'all do good work, but you don't pay us property tax. And that's where we get our general fund money from, that pays for our police and fire. And our police and fire are very overtaxed, or, you know, as far as work goes, not giving them a lot of extra taxes. Then, of course, you know, there's all these other programs for high dollar apartments that don't pay taxes, which,
Council
I mean,
President,
we've knocked
respectfully.
that down. Jennifer, can you wait just a minute, please?
Okay, respectfully, I just was just curious if it was germane to this topic, and I appreciate,
It's
I appreciate what you're saying though. Okay,
very germane.
I haven't heard from a couple other people there, so that's why.
Well, they weren't ready to speak yet, so when Rick and Christy want to speak, they'll let me know, I'm sure. So, I mean, and that goes to you, Carl, and the county, and the way you distribute money. It's not fair. I think that it's totally appropriate for Bremerton to have a small shelter, and I mean small, and we could base it on the percentage of population based on the whole county. Because I look at things like what Eagles Wings is doing in Gorse with a 30 to 35 bed shelter, where they're doing full services also. And if we had more of them in every community, I looked at the list, it's like, you know, somebody's got a 2-person shelter. I mean, I got a 1-person, my grandson lives in my basement. So, I mean, I hope you understand that it's a big burden on Bremerton to foot the bill for operations. And I know right now you think you can get money, but they are closing down shelters in Pierce County and King County because of lack of operation money. So it's really important, but I think the first step has got to be real community outreach to especially peoples in District 1 and 2, and to hear from the community as a whole. What do we want to do? Because $1 million a year would be, we have to lay off 10 employees. I mean, that's what it would cost. If it's 300,000, we're laying off 3 employees. Which 3 do we lay off? So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of hard choices for us to make. And I just want to make sure everybody's clear about that. And then so, Christy or Rick, do you have any comments you want to make at this time? And you don't have to if you're not ready to comment.
No, when I first heard of this idea, I read I wasn't on the council. I read about it in the Kitsap Sun, to be perfectly honest. And on the surface, it appeared to be very practical, and the location, a good location, having been a healthcare facility in that location before. What I didn't take into consideration, and I've since learned, is the community, the outreach to the community. So, and I frankly don't know enough about the alternative that was rejected by the Public Works location in the past. So I'm not qualified to speak to that and why the council made that decision a year and a half ago. But I do believe, I mean, I have an email today from someone concerned in that area. Went to Christy and I, concerns about that particular location and its proximity to View Ridge, and some of the other, I guess, obstacles and barriers that might affect that community. Since it's a shelter, there's no security. I mean, the folks can leave the area, right? They can leave and go to the grocery store or whatever is they'd like to do from that location. So I do believe that community outreach is important in hearing from the neighbors. But the site, the location where one corner it could be, as you put, and the other further back, adjacent to Cherry Street, so forth, as far as housing, that seems like that could work. But again, I'm not just, I need to hear from the folks that are in that area. I would want to hear from the folks that are in the area.
Garrett, in his email earlier, is Garrett still here? Said something about, and thank you so much for being here, but said something about we don't want to give any inference that we've approved something and would without an application, there is no formal process, right, of public engagement. So we would need not only tonight you telling us what your ask is, but we need something submitted to us for consideration in order to have a public meeting about it, right? I'm looking at Garrett.
And I'm sorry to have a mixed answer, but it
That's
depends
okay.
on the specific proposal. So if it's the temporary encampment, then the applicant is supposed to do work before permits to go, to have a temporary encampment. If they want the temporary encampment for longer than the 183 days, then that requires zoning code amendment. So the temporary encampment portion takes a lot amount of time. The shelter itself, if they're requesting departures from the code, from the zoning code, then they can take that to the design review board, which then has a public process for the shelter itself. So yeah, once we get an application, we'd be happy to process it as we would any other application.
I think it's reached that time. I wanted to have a district meeting. And I was told, please don't do that, or we'll go ahead and do that, but you can't talk about the location. Okay, the location is now known. And I think that my constituents of District 2 deserve an opportunity, along with the citizens of Bremerton, to come together and hear formally whatever is being proposed. Without that, you're almost asking, I think, for us to take a straw poll tonight of maybe up to $1 million and we're supportive of this. And I don't feel comfortable doing that at this point. I probably would weigh in against, and I would rather not have a vote where I feel compelled to do that. So I'm looking to staff, our city attorney especially. How do we do this right? Where our partners are asking us if we're still supportive of them, like we were 2 years ago. This is a different council. The world has changed. So I think it's fair to come back together. But because it has become public, the location, I think it has to be a formal public process.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know about this meeting, that we've scheduled. It sounds very, where we've been playing this very loose. And, we've got the pictures, we've got all of that. I still really don't know what we're being asked to do. So until I have that agenda bill in front of me, then I know what are we voting on specifically.
But if we have that agenda bill in front of us, typically we vote the next week. That doesn't give the community, especially in District 2, enough time
Oh,
for you to
yeah.
meet with them and to
Oh,
talk
no, I'm
about
saying
it.
that the formal process would take care of the community engagement, but I'm looking at I'm looking at staff. This is a public meeting, I know I'm putting you on the spot. We need this kind of information.
Hi there. So, I mean, I think the slide is pretty clear of what they're asking for. It's that this one's entitled Our App.
Can you put that back up?
I don't have clarity.
See, formally endorse, I don't know how we formally
So I
endorse.
guess I can just kind of work through that. I think there was discussion about that early on about, I think it was Monica that she said endorse was the word you chose, and I think I understood what you mean. And this was about the proposal as the hybrid shelter model, and is the council still on board with that? And so I think the council need to have a discussion about that. It sounds like that there's still support for the model. What everyone heard from the last time, there might be concerns about this particular location, which is fair because it's a process that the council would need to go through a zoning code amendment, and you need to have that public process. So saying that they support it right now at this location is problematic because that process hasn't happened and the public gets to weigh in on that. As far as the budget allocation, we just passed the budget. There wasn't an allocation for funding, and so I guess that question's answered. As far as the planning department participating in community discussions, I don't think that's really appropriate because they're the permitting agency and they need to be neutral, and so they don't need to participate. Their role is different in the process. Right. I just don't think it would be appropriate for them to participate as an advocate for the applicant when they are the person processing the permit. And then engaging collaborative planning discussions with county and legislature to support. And I think this one could be problematic, just that it's not ready at this point because of the zoning code changes that happen that need to come to council eventually for the planner, for the city council to, I think, engage at that level. But yeah, so I think, I mean, was there another app? Was there 2 slides?
I think the next slide is just how this could look. It wasn't separate.
Okay. I mean, I think one thing that would be helpful to be clear that might make a lot of this where is just who's the applicant and what's the council's role in this. And there's 2 different things going on here. So you have a role as your legislative authority for the city that approves zoning changes. You also, that happens whether anyone is citing, anything that needs a zoning review. But this is a little bit more complicated because the council also allocated funding, and they did so before site was chosen. And so now you have the city is paying for this to be developed, but at the same time as the site that's selected isn't zoned or the codes are not supporting that use. So it puts the council in kind of a bind in that public process. Needs to happen on its own timeline and with transparency and I guess an open mind. And so I guess that's where I see that you're feeling that push and pull, and I think that's why it is that there's one hand, there's the funding aspect of council having allocated money to this, and then there's the legislative process of council needing to make code changes and wanting to keep an open mind until you have that. And so that's just a feature of what this site is and how it was, chosen. I think it could maybe clarity could be reached if we can make it very clear of whose shelter is it, because that has been kind of an issue of I guess is it BHA is the has been sort of the pre-sub.
We own the land.
Right.
So BHA would own it.
Okay.
That's the question.
I think so. I mean, I think that's important. Is it BHA shelter located in the city of Bremerton with funding from Kitsap County and the city of Bremerton? And so kind of starting to frame some of those conversations I think could be helpful, and that what's the council's role going to be going forward? Because I think if the council had a more neutral role and that they were going to take in the public input as it came with the zoning code amendment, it would be a more comfortable spot for them to be in, rather than being almost like an applicant to themselves. Does that make sense? That's where I see that it really needs to be clarified whose shelter is, whose shelter is.
And it will be Bremerton House. Yeah, we would own it. We own the land now. But we're not supposed to sell it to an operator.
They own the land.
I guess I don't understand.
Are you the, I know, you own the property, but she's asking, would you own the shelter?
Yeah.
Okay, that was her question. Michael?
I kind of want to go back, where,
Jill?
Sorry.
We're only on hour 7.
You know, early on, Jill said may not have used all the correct language or syntax, but they are basically asking for us to get on the same page. Very simple work. And they're not saying their way or the highway. They're saying, let's get on the same page. We can get on the, that we think that this is the right thing. Then they're saying, like, so to me, part of that would be, we support you doing the process to do that. We're not gonna maybe, we don't have that kind of power to make the change. But we would support requesting and going through the process. I kind of mentioned earlier, I would support anything we could do to make the process a little easier. But and then there's been some clear piece with funding, the operational funding, which somebody in a nonprofit the pain of my existence, and that's why we shake people down every day for the change that they have. But any shelter is going to have the problems that we're hearing, whether it's demand on police and fire. And again, yes, maybe there's some concentrated stuff. Maybe there's some consternation between folks, but they're not out in the woods. They're not out in the rain. Yes?
Oh, I would, no.
Oh, are you disagreeing, or, if you want to say something?
No, I do think that whenever you put people together, there can be more conflict, obviously, and I don't think that depends on the site.
But I would hope that we could, knowing that, right? Maybe there's folks that part of programming, part of things that happen maybe during the day that we let folks know, to behave, and nothing seems insurmountable in what we're in the problem. And again, I go back to so many of these problems are going to happen to these individuals wherever. Yes, by bringing together, it's going to happen more there. I don't like the bringing up the issue about the school. There are school children that are homeless. Mm-hmm. And to just assume just because someone's homeless, they become a threat. Now, again, these folks, if there is somebody in the shelter that's a threat, they're a threat no matter where they're at. If there's somebody that's got mental health issues that might also produce maybe a threat, that's going to happen anywhere. So at least now you even know where they're at. You know where they're sleeping at night. So I feel like there's just a lot of little things, but I feel like these could be ironed out. But we have to get on the same page and try to figure those pieces out to see if we want to, because everyone, including us, have put a lot, not you two, put a lot of time into this. And, we have to kind of do it or get off the pot.
Okay, it's Jennifer's turn. She's been waiting for a while. Go ahead, Jennifer.
It's okay. And Council President, thank you for and apologies for interrupting you earlier. I know it's been a long day, and I can understand where you're coming from with I think part of the ask is asking the city of Bremerton for operations when we're asked for so much already to take care of our citizens. And I do appreciate the points that you made. I don't think we are on the same page anymore when we used to be. We used, and we had some discussion, long discussion. I don't think, I mean, I don't know. Um, I wanted to know, I mean, I don't feel like public process is going to yield different results in any location. We have too many people that don't, NIMBYs, if, for a lack of a better term, right? And so I'm curious about the public process that occurred for Pendleton Place and how many people came out in support of Pendleton Place. Mayor, are you able to speak to that?
Yeah. It's the same.
Right.
You know, what you do with public process is you try to listen to the concerns and address them. And you move the facts, you try to provide as many facts as possible, and make building and then the project afterwards accommodate as many concerns as possible. Same with Oyster Bay, same with current one.
Right.
Just and I know we're kind of looking at alternatives and options and obviously deciding if you're on the same page or not, but the project's been proposed. So we actually have a specific project that's been proposed to the city in a pre-submittal conference with a detailed response letter sent back. That's where the project stands.
You mean the project currently being proposed, or in front of us today?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Public process is something you have to do to check the box, right? Or can it be bypassed? It shouldn't be, but that's a real question I've been wondering.
For Pendleton Place, we had a major community meeting at the church that's right adjacent to Pendleton Place. And at that meeting, our architect was there, the mayor was there, the police captain was there. We had representation from the planning department, and we were all there to answer the community's questions. We had about 50 attendees in addition to the staff that showed up. And to be quite honest, 40 out of the 50 were in opposition. And it was a lot of the things that you would expect that would be in opposition. And we heard them, and they had a chance to give voice. And that would be the same thing that would happen here. We would have that public process. I know that you're going to have probably the people who are against it that tend to be the ones who show up, and I respect that. I really do. But that's what we had for Pendleton Place, and we took their input and we're available for community feedback even now if somebody has concerns. So, because I don't think it's a one-shot deal on community process. You have to be available once you open. That's when the real community process begins, regardless of where the shelter site is selected.
Well, and I want to speak to something that Mr. Crane said, which is that he can't, and I don't want to misquote you, but basically you can't support a congregate shelter that just shoves people into, I mean, like, all together. I mean, yeah, but you know what? These folks in Salvation Army are sleeping on the floors, y'all. We got to get them into a bed. Like, I mean, like, I just am in support of anything that's going to be the quickest and not waste $1.3 million, which is a lot of money to our city. So the Oyster Bay, I'm just saying, y'all, the Oyster Bay site, we could vote and have that up potentially before the end of the year. I am not in support of this plan anymore. There is no way that these folks can finish this in time. That's my position. I just want to get something up quick for folks. Okay, there, I said my piece. I appreciate all the community partners. I'm sorry, y'all, you don't have enough time. We're going to waste this money if we can't get it done.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anna?
Just really speaking quickly to community outreach. In my 2 failed campaigns in 2019 to win this seat, I knocked on the door of every registered voter. And I was totally psyched about Pendleton. And 72 bed, totally supported, permanent supportive housing. And overwhelmingly, like not people who came out to a community meeting, but people who, as regular people, over 80% of them, and I'm being conservative, were like, that's great. That's wonderful. So just something to keep in mind about community outreach. That's it.
Okay, Janice,
It would go a long way for me if you could fill that moon-sized crater. You know, we need you to walk this. We need you to walk this, because if I'm trying to bring money in to invest in building, almost 400 units of housing would fit in that moon-sized crater. And investors they're going to shy away. They're going to shy away from investing. And Bremerton is going to have that moon-sized crater. Basically, CHI took our hospital and they're giving us a homeless shelter. And that doesn't feel good. I know it's a service, not to the whole entire community. And I am sick to death about the impact to the community development in my district if this goes through. And I've told you that directly. I told you that early. I told you that often, and I was shamed for it. And I'm not going to allow that anymore. Community development is important to Bremerton. Our tax base, as President Revelowski was talking, it's very low. We struggle to pay for basic services. And a lack of community development, it looks like a war zone up there, people. It does. Blocks and blocks. Nobody talks about that. You know, the impact of a decision like this has repercussions for a city for decades. And if that moon-sized crater isn't filled with housing, then Bremerton, as far as I'm concerned, it's dying. It's dying. We're not going to be able to survive. So let's be careful about this. Let's really get together. Shoot, let's bring them to the table. Let's work with the developers on filling that moon-sized crater. You know, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it made my job a lot harder, because I have to think of everybody. I no longer have the luxury of focusing on only one issue. I don't. I had to say goodbye to that. I need to do what's best for Bremerton and all the citizens of Bremerton. And I don't support this plan on that side. I can't.
Michael, did you want to add?
I'd like to think that CHI, when they sold the property, considered the impact on the other property that it's trying to sell. They don't want to sit on that land forever. But anyways, that's just a side. Had we stuck with the original shelter, we'd still be figuring out how to fund it for future years. I feel more confident doing the best we can, but knowing we've got a team of folks that can see it through and I hope it succeeds. I honestly think I was one of the last standing folks who I kind of came over to this team because to join consensus with my fellow council members. And nothing against you guys. But like this is almost becoming a pattern. I used to hear this about Seattle all the time. They would come up with something, they would put a monorail through the whole city, and then they tear it. They tear the idea down. They're going to do something else, and they tear it. The fact that they have light rail now from end to end is amazing. Anyways, we've got some soul searching to do, I think, but we've got to do something. And I feel that these are good people to have, holding our hands and doing it together than trying to do it alone from scratch again. And then figuring out how to run it and how to fund it and all that.
So I have a question. I know that that the whole plan is to have both a congregate shelter and then pallet housing or some other type of small housing. And the zoning change depends very strongly on what the community is asking for. And we're not even allowed to go to planning commission meetings, you know, that's
We
for,
can go, we just can't talk.
well, no, I was told I shouldn't even go.
Huh?
So anyway, I was just me. Yeah, probably.
Kind of me too.
So what happens if you get started, and this is just a what if, you know, I'm not saying this is gonna happen, but if you get started and you put in the congregate while you're waiting to see if the zoning change goes through, and what if it doesn't go through? What happens then?
I think the congregate also possibly take a deviation from design. So I think there's two things. It's not just that. So I think if we were to move forward with this, we would be applying for any of the changes that we need. And our plan would be to start as those things get approved. But yes, I want to be very honest, and I will be discussing this with my board at our next board meeting, which is at the end of January. But yes, they're strong believers in the hybrid. And so they will want assurances that it is going to be that, because otherwise.
Before you put the shovel in the ground.
Right, because you know, her agency, it's very different than our agency. So we don't provide the services like that. But we are in this because of what we do, which is permanent housing. And so this is a pathway into the federal resources that we want to bring into this property specifically.
So with the changes in, we'll call it leadership in DC, do you still feel that getting money for housing first is a possibility?
I'm not suggesting housing first.
Okay.
Part of the long-term plan for the Bremerton Housing Authority, we have some resources that bring in federal dollars for our public housing and our voucher program.
Okay.
Those dollars are, as far as I know.
Yeah, I know.
So.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. Anybody else have any questions tonight?
I don't know if we're giving you what you need. I'm sorry. Is there anything else we can do for you before we close out your check? I mean,
Here's a suggestion. The public hopefully is sending emails to all of us. The people who are really interested watch tonight or they're going to watch soon. And we should be getting a lot of input, I would think, before we meet again.
but are we gonna have an agenda item or something? I mean, I'm wondering what the rest of the process, what's it gonna look like?
I think we need an agenda item.
No.
Sorry, an agenda item, yes, it can be on our agenda.
Yeah.
We don't need
A bill.
a bill,
Yeah.
like an agenda bill or a motion or that kind of stuff. We can set aside time to do something. We can do a public
Like in a
hearing.
study session or something
Yes.
like this? But what would we be asked, what would we be deciding on then?
And that's where I'm unclear from, just to and again, yes, I've been here 2 weeks. Thank you. Okay, but
Get with
in
the
my
program,
2
lady.
weeks, with this, it sounds to me like you guys have reached a fork in the road. You've done all of the background, everything that you can do at this moment, and it's kind of reaching that yes, no, do we continue? And so in that, it becomes the yes, no, do we continue with all of this? And to be perfectly honest, with having a voice that's only been here 2 weeks, I don't know what I would be bringing yes to, because there's those 4 bullet point items that we have that's, the very clear ask. But I don't know what that means if I said yes, because it seems like bullet point 1 is the vision, which everybody knows it's a problem. And who wouldn't want something like this? It's an amazing campus. So who doesn't say yes to the vision of it? The second one is a monetary ask. I don't know what I would be agreeing to with that, because it needs to be a tangible monetary, because we don't have any buckets of money in the current budget that we have for 2026 that would be discretionary funds, if you will, or something that we can move, we can pivot. So if we know we don't have those for 2026 and we don't actually know what's being asked, I think it's a disservice for me to weigh in on something and say, absolutely yes, because there are people listening. There are people in the room right now that This is not it's not a tangible idea. Like they have a need. They have this need right now. So if we are voicing that we're making promises here, I would hope that people can stand behind that. And I don't know, like I said, if this is a yes, no moment, fork in the road for all of us at this moment, I don't even know what we'd be agreeing yes to. So it doesn't seem like, when we have an ask, like what is the absolute ask because we've reached yes, no in life? Because you've come to that, you've done all the work.
As a suggestion, I'm going to tell you, our boards are all watching this. We're going to be having these very difficult discussions with our boards following this. So that might be that answer, might be very quick. But I would say that, to your point, there's things that the city can do that can help and support and make this public and more easier process. Or to Denise's point and to Jennifer's point, they're out. They're saying no. They're very clear on that. It's helpful for us to know that.
I think that
If it was tonight,
it's the hats that we wear as a city too, and that's what Kylie was pointing to, is that some of those bullet points up there, while they may look like it's city council where there may be things, that's not actually our jurisdiction.
Sure.
And by saying absolutely yes, we agree with it, but it's not our wheelhouse, again, we're doing a disservice to people. Because publicly we're standing on a soapbox saying, yes, absolutely, and then putting the burden of the actual work and everything else on somebody else.
Yeah.
I guess if I could, I just want to echo something I think that was said, which is one of the next practical steps that could be taken would be to put in an actual application. Like that hasn't happened yet. So for this consortium, if we can put in an application, then the next logical step perhaps could be the community outreach that would be part of the process. And so maybe to make that kind of ask premature in a way where if the application's in, the community has a chance to kind of engage with us, maybe law enforcement, the fire department, the team. And then after you hear all that feedback, then at that point, maybe that's then the next logical conversation. I just wonder if that's.
So then have we not reached that fork that yes, no, like maybe there's one more step for you guys to explore?
Let me go. I think the next step is what you said, is can we get on the same page? Because we don't want them to go through that if we're not committed. But I want to back up. We asked them to come up with a plan. They came up with a plan. They presented it and we moved forward with it as a council. We pulled Mayor Wheeler's Sprung Shelter Oyster Bay plan. These folks are delivering everything we've asked them to do.
No.
Okay. I don't think, all right, roughly, I'll soften it a little bit.
Okay.
They're delivering the shelter model, because I don't actually know what you're getting to, but
no, you do,
and you can, but I think we need to sit down and we need to decide if we're behind this team or not. And if we're behind this team, then they can say, okay, we're going to start submitting, we're going to start that process, we're going to get the community involved, we're going to find out how to mitigate any concerns that come up and things like that. But I think we have to, I think the next step is we have to decide whether we're wasting their time moving forward. I think everything you guys have done has been valuable for the most part. I just think we have to have a conversation. Maybe we can carve out a little bit of time at our retreat or something. I know that's so valuable in itself, but that's my take on how to move forward.
You could take a straw poll tonight as well. That is your option.
I think
it's 8:20.
We have another big item to discuss tonight. Well, who wants to add this, like, for a no more than 30-minute discussion at the retreat.
No,
I am not in favor of that. I would like to
No.
see it 2 weeks so we can receive good public comment.
Okay.
That would be my preference. I don't know about anybody else, sorry.
So did you say you want to wait a week for public comment? Did I hear you right?
I want to wait till the next study session, and I'd like us to see if we can get on the same page at the next study session. Is that something that other counselors are interested in?
Without the partners, were we gonna bring the partners here again, or?
No.
They got TV, they can watch us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to do
Yeah.
this again.
If a question comes up, shoot them an email.
you
Yeah.
don't have to draw the Pentagon, it can't, yeah, that's much simpler now.
I think we all agree that we want to focus on a shelter in, in the coming year, whatever model that looks like. We're all going to be behind, something. So I'd just like to see it at the next study session for a topic.
Okay. Does everybody agree with that on council?
Yes.
Michael, do you agree?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, Christie?
Yeah.
Okay,
Doesn't preclude you from
Yeah,
submitting
from
anything,
our
but
process, yeah.
we should not take it.
Kylie?
Is there a way that we can get more clarity on point two? Because it sounds like that was pretty clear.
On what?
Point two up there.
Yeah,
Funding.
a dollar number. You can wait till next study session to come up with that.
We're asking for anything right
Well, ongoing.
now. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, we have the
We are.
construction
No,
expense.
ongoing.
Yeah.
The city being.
The sustainable operations.
There, to
Yeah.
that point, we have been providing a little bit of money sustainably to the Salvation Army for security. I mean, a minimum.
no,
right?
not anymore.
Just for operations, but not.
That stopped, Jennifer.
Okay.
Sorry,
No, I know, but I mean that's okay. Anyway, nothing. We got it. Let's talk about it in the future. I'm done.
2 years ago, I remember saying this. If this city council wanted to allocate $1 million a year, I said this. If this city council wanted to allocate $1 million a year to operating a shelter or whatever, we could do it. We could do it. We would tell the mayor, lay off 10 people or something. But we do have that power to ask those questions, and it's again that we have to represent the needs of the entire community. So what do we get rid of in order to do that? And so it is really tough when we don't. I think the ask is $1 million because that's what the ask was, and I haven't seen a pivot. I haven't seen any downsizing. I haven't seen any. I don't know.
Yeah. We could easily throw out a number, but we're not gonna be able to say the operations costs are gonna be this and this is our exact gap, because we gotta apply for CR. Our goal would be to apply for so much money that the city doesn't have to.
Yeah.
But the bigger thing is we don't know all of these things that you're funding, and we don't know what it's costing you or what it will potentially cost the city once the Salvation Army shuts down. These are things that you all know with the city staff. So when we said $1 million, that was the kind of gap that we're trying to fill. But if you guys are like, there's no way we can get there. That's fine.
We heard
Just
that.
like, okay, what could you get to? Is there any potential
count
you
on
could
it.
get
We
to
heard that.
something? Is it 200,000? Is it, $500,000? What is it? Like, and take a look at that and say, like, if shelter is important to you and you have some sort of an obligation here, then yeah, look at those things. And so we could say, oh, okay, great, the city's gonna do this. Now we know we're gonna be going after that. But I think, so that's why we're saying we don't have a number, but we do think we're gonna need something ongoing. And so looking at everything in your budget, but back to the real ask is what you're asking for, and I get it, is we feel now like we're fighting almost with the city. And we're not gonna do that.
I know.
Like, we're friends with the mayor. Like, we're not gonna fight. Like, we have this to offer, but you guys have to accept. So that's what we're asking. We're not asking that you publicly go out and say, we're 100% what we're saying is, we need something in the city and they have a plan and we're not going to fight against them. But yeah, we want to go through the public process. We are going to go through those processes. We want to go through those processes. Joe sat down with with somebody who has showed up to our board meetings and who has publicly stated they're very opposed to this. We're having coffee with these people. We're doing this. We have a whole community outreach plan ready to go. We had to do the education piece. We had to secure the site. And now we go through the next process. Everything has been intentionally laid out. And we're not going to fight with you guys. Like, you say you want us to move forward, we move forward. You say you don't, we still love you all.
Yeah.
We're going to work with you.
I know.
BHA is out as far as we got to follow our mission. That's what we're federally funded for. It's different for the other agencies, but that's what we're saying.
But we're not gonna leave.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going to lead. And, if there was a way that BHA can step in that furthers our mission, the board is going to be on board. So that's where we're at. And yeah, we don't want to spend a lot of more time spinning our wheels. We were asked to pause after the last meeting. Ann Williams asked us to pause. We paused. Had that not happened, we would be moving forward. But we wanted to respect what we heard. So we paused. We're still paused, but we're ready to move forward. So
I think that pause came from administration and the council.
yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Anne's the one we were talking to at the time.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mary. I read your email and I misunderstood it.
Yeah, Anne was talking with us
Yeah.
and asked us to pause.
Well, I think it'd be great for us to have a discussion at our next study session, which you can all watch and see what that's like. I'm going to encourage people to write to City Council, and we'll share those emails with you so you can be aware of different community concerns. And I think at our next study session, we have to say yay or nay.
I haven't asked for that though, and I did it, but we've been getting, like he referenced tonight, we got an email just the two of us. It was not sent to City Council that had to do with this issue. And I think it's important if all of us send them to Anne. So that we're
Absolutely.
all getting them. Because
Absolutely.
we are going to start getting things individually, but it
Yeah.
would be really, really nice if we're having the discussion to have all at these things. So if we're going to do that, if we can make a little promise to ourselves that when we get them, if they're just to us, forwarding them to Anne so that we all have this community voice, regardless of who they happen to talk to.
Right.
She also keeps, and in that SharePoint is all the emails, everything.
Yeah.
So we can always go there too, but we need to get.
Yep, and I don't think that it's on the community to know who to come, like who should be getting everything. If they, any one of us, regardless of.
Trying to ask people to send anything
City Council.
emails to city.council so that it can be tracked and redistributed.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you all coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the work you're doing.
Confetti.
We wanted last time.
I feel like it's sad trumpet.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, now we're gonna do something lighthearted, right?
Oh, yeah.
Y'all were keeping me down here like a hostage. I got snacking things. I got like, no.
Do you guys want a 10-minute break?
Yes.
Okay. I'm calling a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 8:40.
Did that while Michael was out of there. No.
Show me how to shut this down.
Oh,